Are you ready for this story? Subscribe now so you don't miss a thing. And you, Ilara, what do you do for a living? The venture capitalist asked at Liam's company dinner. Before I could answer, Liam laughed and rushed to interject. Oh, Ilara dabbles in some consulting work from home. Nothing too serious. Just enough to keep her busy while I handle the real business decisions. The words landed on the elegant dining table like a grenade. 6 months earlier, my dabbles had saved a $12 million pension fund by exposing fraudulent accounting practices at a company. The report I'd written was cited in 3 major financial publications. But according to my husband, it just kept me busy. I smiled politely at the table full of investors and executives, while something fundamental shifted inside me. The woman sitting next to the investor, a pharmaceutical CEO whose company I had extensively researched, nodded in understanding. "That's so nice that you have time for little projects," she said, with a condescension that made my teeth ache. I wanted to tell her my little projects had uncovered more corporate fraud in the last 3 years than her company's entire compliance department. Instead, I gripped my wine glass and wondered when exactly my husband had started seeing me as a hobbyist. The shift hadn't happened overnight. 9 years earlier, we met in the university library during our final semester. 2 broke students with massive dreams and even bigger student loans. I was cramming for my corporate finance final when Liam's constant pen tapping on the table next to me became impossible to ignore. "You know, the rhythm you're playing matches that one annoying pop song," I whispered during a particularly elaborate drum solo on his textbook. He looked up with an embarrassed grin that made my heart flutter. "Sorry, I think better with background music, even imaginary background music. I'm Liam, Ilara, and I think better in complete silence, so we might have a problem. Or a perfect match," he said, sliding his chair closer. "You handle the quiet focus. I'll bring the creative energy." That conversation lasted until the library closed. We discovered we both survived on instant noodles. We both dreamed of building our own companies, and we both believed that mediocrity was the only real failure. Liam wanted to revolutionize how companies use technology, while I was fascinated by the stories hidden in corporate financial statements. "Let's make a deal," I said, as we walked across the empty campus that night. "No matter what happens after graduation, we will support each other completely. No competition, no jealousy, just a pure partnership." "Business partners for life," he agreed, shaking my hand with mock formality. We lived that promise completely for the first few years after college. When Liam got his first interview at a tiny tech startup, we celebrated with $3 champagne and spent the entire night rehearsing answers to every possible question. I helped him research the company's technology and its competitive position until he could discuss their business model better than some of their employees. "You're going to revolutionize their whole approach," I said, as he adjusted his tie in our tiny bathroom mirror. "They'd be crazy not to hire you. And when you get your first big consulting client, we'll buy champagne that doesn't come in plastic bottles," he promised. My consulting business began at our kitchen table because office space was financially impossible. I specialized in equity analysis for small investors, helping them identify red flags that bigger firms might overlook or deliberately ignore. The work required meticulous attention to detail, countless hours of poring over filings, cross-referencing executive compensation with company performance, and building financial models that could predict trouble before it hit the headlines. Liam never complained about our apartment transforming into a paper-strewn research hub or the constant whir of my printer during late-night sessions. He would bring me midnight coffee and peer over my shoulder at spreadsheets filled with numbers that meant nothing to him. "Catch any corporate criminals today?" he'd ask, rubbing my shoulders as I highlighted patterns of suspicious transactions. "I think I actually did," I said on one particularly productive night. "This pharmaceutical company has been moving R&D costs between different divisions to make their quarterly earnings look better. Their investors don't realize how much money they're really losing on failed drug trials. That sounds like fraud. It's not technically illegal, but it's definitely deceptive. When the truth comes out, people are going to lose a lot of money. My report on that pharmaceutical company ended up saving my clients over $4 million when the stock price tanked 6 months later. Financial journalists cited my analysis, and suddenly my phone was ringing constantly with investors who wanted to hire the consultant who had predicted disaster, while everyone else was recommending a buy. Liam was genuinely thrilled by my success in those days. At parties, he would introduce me as the woman who takes down corrupt corporations from our kitchen table, and his pride was completely authentic. We were both building something meaningful. We were both contributing equally to our shared future. Are you enjoying this story? Like this video so we can share it with more people. The shift in our partnership, Liam's career moved quickly through several technology firms. He started as a junior analyst, moved into product management, and then landed positions with greater responsibility and impressive salary bumps. I watched him build confidence in boardrooms and master the political complexities that would eventually catch the attention of Ether Solutions. "I got the executive strategy director position," he announced one night, vibrating with excitement. "It's a huge leap, but they were specifically looking for someone with my multi-platform integration experience. That's amazing. When do you start?" "In 3 weeks. There's one complication. We have to move to London," he continued. "I know it means rebuilding your client base entirely, but this opportunity could change everything for us." I didn't hesitate for a moment. Of course we're moving. This is exactly what we've been working for. Relocating meant sacrificing my established client relationships, but I believed completely in our partnership. I referred clients to competitors, gave up my office contract, and spent weeks researching London's investment community to identify potential opportunities. The financial cost was substantial, but watching Liam excel in his new role was worth every penny lost. What I couldn't predict was how professional success would gradually alter the fundamental dynamic between us. The man who used to ask for my opinion on every decision started making decisions independently. He would come home discussing strategic initiatives and corporate restructuring. But when I offered my perspectives based on my financial expertise, he would smile politely and change the subject. "The complexities are different at this level," became his standard response when I questioned business strategies that seemed risky from an investment standpoint. "This isn't comparable to your boutique consulting work." The shift accelerated dramatically when Victoria Sterling became his direct supervisor around our 5th wedding anniversary. Suddenly, every conversation included references to Victoria's innovative methodologies, her extensive industry connections, and her visionary approach to corporate strategy. "She's absolutely brilliant," Liam would say, describing some presentation Victoria had given. "She approaches problems from angles that completely reframe the entire solution space." I tried to be supportive. I even suggested we invite her to dinner. "She sounds like an incredible mentor. I'd love to meet the person who's contributed so much to your career development." "Victoria has an extremely demanding schedule," he said quickly. "High-level meetings, industry conferences, strategic planning sessions. She probably wouldn't have time for social engagements." Despite never having met her, Victoria's influence on our marriage intensified significantly. Liam began to completely dismiss my professional expertise, characterizing my work as niche compared to his comprehensive corporate responsibilities. The consultant who had saved millions of investors was suddenly too narrow-minded to understand real business strategy. What would you do if your partner started belittling your work? Tell us your opinion in the comments. The silent breakdown and a vicious plot. The ultimate test of our partnership came when Liam received an offer for a major promotion that required extensive international travel. The opportunity was extraordinary, leading Ether Solutions' global expansion with a compensation package that exceeded our previous combined income. "This is our moment," he said, showing me the offer documentation. "Everything we've worked for our entire marriage." And my consulting practice? "You could just scale back temporarily until I get settled in this new position. Then, we'll have the financial security for you to be completely selective with projects." That night at the dinner, listening to my husband reduce my career to dabbles, while strangers nodded in understanding, I finally understood what our partnership had really become. The venture capitalist was already paying attention to someone more interesting, dismissing me as effectively as Liam had. I excused myself to the restroom and looked at my reflection in the mirror, remembering the ambitious woman who had once saved pension funds from fraudulent investments. She was still there, buried under years of compromises and diminished expectations. As I walked back to the table, I made a decision that would reshape everything. I was done playing small to make Liam comfortable. The foundation we had built together was crumbling, but I still had the skills to build something new. The opportunity to rebuild came faster than I expected. 3 days after that humiliating dinner, Liam burst through the front door with an energy I hadn't seen in months. "Victoria wants to meet you," he announced, loosening his tie with one hand while checking his phone with the other. "There's a company party next Friday, and she specifically asked if you'd be attending." My coffee cup stopped halfway to my lips. After months of hearing about Victoria Sterling's brilliant strategies and innovative leadership, she suddenly wanted to meet the wife who dabbled in consulting work. "She asked for me?" "She said it was time she met the woman behind the man," Liam said, with a smile that didn't quite mask something nervous in his eyes. "Victoria believes in getting to know her team members' families. She thinks it makes for better workplace dynamics." The party was at the Lancaster Hotel, and I spent a shameful amount of time picking out my outfit. I settled on a navy dress that struck the right balance between professional and approachable, paired with the pearl earrings Liam had given me for our anniversary. Looking in the mirror, I saw a woman ready to make a good impression on her husband's powerful boss. Victoria saw us the moment we walked into the elegant ballroom. She glided across the room as if she owned it, which, given her position, she practically did. Tall and sharp-featured, she wore a perfectly tailored black suit that probably cost more than my monthly consulting income. Her handshake was firm, her smile bright, and her eyes calculated every detail of my appearance in the 3 seconds it took her to say hello. "Elara, finally!" "Liam talks about you constantly," her voice said, at just the right volume to ensure nearby colleagues could overhear. "You must be so proud of how well he's doing here. We value him so much." "Thank you. He loves working here." "And you work from home, don't you? How quaint. It must be wonderful to have so much flexibility with your schedule." The word quaint landed with surgical precision, managing to diminish my entire career in a single syllable. "I run a financial consulting practice specializing in equity analysis," I said, keeping my tone pleasant. "How interesting. Liam mentioned you help small investors with their little portfolios. How sweet." Victoria's smile never wavered, but something predatory gleamed behind her eyes. "Liam is so lucky to have someone who can be so adaptable with her career. Not every woman could be so flexible." The conversation lasted perhaps 5 minutes, but I walked away feeling like I had been professionally dissected. Victoria had managed to reduce my business to a hobby, my expertise to an aid, and my professional identity to a convenience for Liam's career, all while appearing completely supportive and friendly. "She's impressive," I said to Liam on our drive home, testing his reaction. "Isn't she? Victoria has a way of seeing straight to the heart of things. She's been incredible for my career development." 2 weeks later, the first text message arrived. "Happy holidays, Alara. Hope you're keeping busy with your projects while Liam handles all the exciting developments here at Ether. So grateful to have such a dedicated team member. Victoria." I stared at the text for a full minute. On the surface, it was perfectly pleasant. Beneath, it positioned my work as mere projects while emphasizing Liam's importance to exciting developments. When I showed it to Liam, he barely glanced at it. "How nice of her to reach out. Victoria is very thoughtful about maintaining relationships with families." The texts continued with clockwork regularity. Valentine's Day brought. "Hope you and Liam have a lovely celebration. He's been working so hard on our new initiatives. You are so understanding of his dedication to excellence." Easter brought. "Thinking of you both this special time. Liam mentioned how much you support his career growth. It's so wonderful that he has someone who keeps him grounded. You are so practical." Each message felt like a small paper cut, tiny, precise, and designed to sting just enough to be noticed, but not enough to seem intentionally malicious. Victoria had perfected the art of the backhanded compliment, wrapping insults in concern and diminishment in praise. "Am I being too sensitive?" I asked Liam after the Easter message, which had left me feeling particularly deflated. "Victoria is just being friendly. She includes all the spouses in her communications. You're overthinking it." But I wasn't overthinking anything. My years of analyzing corporate behavior had taught me to recognize patterns, and Victoria's pattern was becoming crystal clear. She was systematically repositioning me in Liam's mind from his partner to his appendage. The transformation in Liam's behavior became impossible to ignore. He started coming home with Victoria's opinions on everything from market trends to lifestyle choices. When we discussed renovating our kitchen, he would say, "Victoria thinks granite countertops are passé. She prefers quartz." When I suggested we take a beach vacation, he'd reply with, "Victoria says coastal travel is overrated compared to exploring emerging markets." Most exasperating was how he presented Victoria's advice as if it came from a superior authority. "Victoria's insights on work-life balance are truly eye-opening," he'd say, completely missing the irony that her advice was pushing him further and further from our actual life together. One night I tried to discuss a worrying trend I had noticed in quarterly tech sector reports. "Debt-to-equity ratios across the industry are starting to worry me," I said over dinner. "There are signs of over-leverage that remind me of patterns I saw before the last market correction." Liam barely looked up from his phone. "Well, Victoria thinks the current market fundamentals are stronger than they look. She says people who focus too much on traditional metrics miss the bigger innovation picture." "Victoria isn't a financial analyst, Liam. This is, in fact, my area of expertise. Victoria has an MBA from Wharton and 15 years of corporate strategy experience. She understands market dynamics." The dismissal was complete. My decade of successful consulting, my track record of protecting investors from fraud, my specialized expertise in equity analysis. It had all become irrelevant compared to Victoria's general business acumen. Victoria's so-called genius extended beyond just influencing Liam's opinions. She orchestrated my exclusion from Liam's professional world with surgical precision. Company events were scheduled for dates she knew I had client commitments. She would send invitations to optional spouse meetings and then mention how disappointed she was that I couldn't make it. "The other executives' wives are so involved in our company culture," she'd say to Liam during one of their frequent phone calls, her voice clearly audible from the kitchen where I was making dinner. Sarah Chin brings homemade cookies to every event, and David's wife organized that wonderful charity drive. It really makes a difference when families are engaged. The message was clear. I was failing as a corporate spouse by prioritizing my own work over Liam's company functions. Victoria would schedule team-building activities that explicitly excluded spouses, and then ensure Liam came home with stories about how much fun everyone had. Victoria organized this amazing escape room challenge for the leadership team. She's so creative at building camaraderie. Meanwhile, when other companies hosted events that included spouses, Victoria would find reasons why Liam needed to skip them. "Victoria needs me to review the quarterly projections tonight," became his standard excuse, slowly but methodically. I was erased from Liam's professional life, relegated to the role of the stay-at-home wife who couldn't keep up with the ambitious corporate crowd. My breaking point came during a phone call I accidentally overheard. Liam was in his home office with the door ajar, and Victoria's voice was clear as day throughout the house. "You have so much potential, Liam. I see you moving up to senior leadership within the next 2 years. But you need to surround yourself with people who understand that level of ambition. People who can match your drive and vision." "Ilara is very supportive of my career," Liam said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Of course she is, in her own way. But support and true partnership are different things. You need someone who can elevate your thinking, challenge your assumptions, push you towards excellence. Someone who operates at your level." I stood frozen in our hallway, listening to Victoria systematically dismantle my marriage, while positioning herself as the solution to Liam's professional and personal needs. That night, I began taking detailed notes of every interaction, every comment, every subtle manipulation. As someone trained in pattern recognition, I finally understood exactly what Victoria was doing. She wasn't just undermining my relationship with Liam. She was performing a hostile takeover of my marriage, using the same strategic thinking she would apply to a corporate acquisition. The most painful part was watching Liam fall for it completely, interpreting her calculated manipulation as mentorship and career development. The man who once valued my analytical mind couldn't see the analysis that mattered most. Victoria Sterling was systematically destroying us. The gala and a humiliation turned into vengeance. The notebook full of Victoria's manipulations was hidden in my desk drawer when Liam burst through our front door that Tuesday night in March, practically bouncing off the walls with an energy I hadn't seen since his college days. "Get your best dress ready," he announced, tossing his briefcase onto the sofa with uncharacteristic nonchalance. "We're going to the annual Ether Solutions Gala this coming Saturday." I looked up from my laptop, where I had been reviewing quarterly reports for a potential client. "We're going to what?" "The company gala. Victoria specifically insisted you come this year. She said it was time you experienced the full Ether culture." Liam was practically glowing as he loosened his tie. "This is huge, Ilara. The gala is where they announce major promotions, where the real networking happens. Victoria wouldn't have suggested you attend unless something big was coming up." That word, insisted, hit me with a jolt of ice water. After months of strategic exclusion, Victoria suddenly wanted me at the company's most important social event. My analytical mind immediately started calculating the possibilities, and none of them were good. "Insisted?" I repeated carefully. She pulled me aside after today's executive meeting and said, "Liam, it's time Ilara joined us for the gala. I have a feeling this year is going to be especially memorable for you both." He was rummaging through our closet now, pushing hangers aside with unusual enthusiasm. "Where's that dark green dress? The one you wore to our anniversary dinner at that Ricardo's restaurant 2 years ago?" I blinked in surprise. Liam hadn't commented on my clothing choices in months, yet he remembered a specific dress from 2 years ago. It's in the back, behind the winter coats. Perfect. You looked incredible in that dress. Victoria mentioned she's looking forward to seeing you in something elegant. The week leading up to the gala felt surreal. Liam was suddenly attentive in ways that felt almost nostalgic, as if he were trying to recapture some version of us that had existed before Victoria's influence poisoned everything. He brought me morning coffee without being asked. He asked about my consulting work with genuine interest, and even suggested we practice dancing in our living room. "I want everything to be perfect Saturday night," he'd say, spinning me awkwardly around our coffee table. "This could be the moment that changes our entire future." Even as every instinct screamed warnings, I let myself feel hope. Maybe Victoria had realized that excluding me was counterproductive. Maybe she had decided that embracing me was better than fighting me. Maybe this was her olive branch, her way of acknowledging that I was an important part of Liam's life, whether she liked it or not. I threw myself into the preparation with an enthusiasm I hadn't felt in months. A pricey downtown salon gave me a manicure that cost more than I used to spend on groceries. A professional stylist arranged my hair in an elegant updo that made me feel sophisticated and confident. I spent hours researching current tech industry trends, memorizing details about Ether's recent acquisitions and strategic partnerships. "Tell me about the blockchain integration project," I practiced in our bathroom mirror. I read that the preliminary market analysis was quite promising. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was stepping back into my professional identity. The woman who used to be respected in boardrooms was still there, just buried under months of being dismissed and diminished. I was ready to show Liam's colleagues that I was more than just a supportive spouse. I was an intelligent partner with valuable insights and professional credibility. Do you think Alara is ready for what's coming? I'd love to read your predictions in the comments. The Lancaster Hotel lived up to every description Liam had given me. Crystal chandeliers cast a golden light over marble floors, and waiters in impeccable uniforms carried champagne flutes through crowds of elegantly dressed executives and their spouses. As I walked through the lobby in my green dress and carefully styled hair, I felt confident and prepared. But the moment we walked into the main ballroom, something shifted. Liam's hand on my back felt more theatrical than supportive, as if he were playing a role rather than naturally escorting his wife. His eyes immediately found Victoria across the room, and I saw his posture shift from relaxed to alert. "There she is," he murmured, and I didn't know if it was a statement of fact or one of anticipation. Victoria swept towards us like a queen holding court, her silver dress catching the light from the chandelier with every calculated step. Her smile was as bright as a theater spotlight, visible from across the room. "Alara, finally." The emphasis on finally was subtle, but unmistakable, designed to sound surprised and delighted, while implying my attendance was somehow unexpected or uncertain. "Thank you for suggesting I join you," I replied, keeping my voice pleasant and professional. "Well, Liam deserves to have his date here for such a special evening." The phrase, "his date," was delivered with surgical precision, demoting me from wife and partner to an accessory in front of a room full of Liam's colleagues. I felt his hand tighten slightly on my back, but he said nothing to correct Victoria's characterization. "Let me show you to your table," Victoria continued, her voice at just the right volume to ensure nearby executives could overhear every word. "I made sure you were seated with delightful people, with whom I'm certain you will have fascinating things to discuss." She guided us through the ballroom like a hostess showing guests to their designated spots. Other couples were finding their seats, checking place cards. settling in for what was clearly going to be an elaborate evening of corporate celebration. "Here we are," Victoria announced, pointing to an elegant round table near the center of the room. "Liam, you're right here next to me at the head table, of course." My stomach clenched. "We're not sitting together?" "Oh, didn't Liam explain? Executives sit at the leadership table. Spouses have their own seating arrangements." Victoria's tone was apologetic yet firm, as if this was standard protocol rather than another strategic separation. I looked at Liam, expecting him to object, or at least look surprised by this arrangement. Instead, he was already moving toward the head table, his attention focused on Victoria's explanation of the night's agenda. "Your place card should be around here somewhere," Victoria said, scanning the elegant table arrangements with theatrical concern. I started checking the small cream-colored cards at each setting, reading names of people I didn't recognize. Jennifer Walsh, marketing coordinator. David Kim, regional sales manager. Sarah Chin, executive assistant. And then I found mine. The card was identical to all the others. Cream cardstock with elegant calligraphy in dark blue ink. But in place of my name, it read, "Pathetic, unimportant, gold digger." The words hit me with the force of a physical blow. I stared at the card, rereading it to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. The professional presentation somehow made it worse. This wasn't a spontaneous insult, scrawled in anger. This was a carefully planned humiliation, designed and executed with the same attention to detail as the rest of the night's arrangements. The laughter started as a ripple and became a wave. The other people at the table had seen the card, and their reaction ranged from gasps of surprise to ill-disguised amusement. I heard someone whisper, "Oh my God, did you see what her place card says?" "Still clinging on after all this time," a woman's voice said behind me, followed by more laughter. The sound grew louder as more people noticed the commotion and came closer to see what was causing it. Within seconds, half the ballroom was looking at me, or actively laughing at the elegant calligraphy that had reduced me to a joke. I turned to Liam, expecting anger, outrage, or at the very least, some sign that he was as shocked by this cruelty as I was. Instead, I found him looking down at his water glass as if it held the mysteries of the universe. His face was carefully neutral, his shoulders tense with what I realized wasn't surprise, but discomfort at being caught in the middle of something he knew was going to happen. "Liam," I said quietly, giving him one last chance to defend me, to show some sign that the man I had married was still in there, somewhere inside the stranger wearing his face. He could not meet my eyes. His silence stretched through the laughter and whispered comments, speaking louder than any words could have. In that moment, I understood with crystal clarity that this wasn't just Victoria's masterpiece of public destruction. Liam was a willing participant in my humiliation. His silence wasn't shock. It was complicity. The one I had supported through every career challenge. The partner I had sacrificed my professional ambitions for. The husband I had loved and trusted for 9 years. Could not find the courage to stand up for me against the cruelest public humiliation I had ever experienced. I looked around the ballroom at the faces surrounding me, some laughing, some uncomfortable, all of them witnessing my complete and total destruction. The weeks of preparation, the hope I had allowed myself to feel, the confidence I had painstakingly rebuilt, all crumbled to dust. But as I stood there, holding that place card, something else crystallized inside me. The woman they were laughing at, the pathetic, unimportant gold digger, had skills they couldn't possibly imagine, and Victoria Sterling had just made the biggest mistake of her carefully calculated career. I walked to the exit with my head held high, and as I passed the CEO, who was chuckling at Victoria's brilliant joke, I leaned close to his ear. If I were you, I'd check your stock prices, I whispered. A new chapter. The taxi driver kept looking at me in his rearview mirror during the silent drive home from the Lancaster, probably wondering why a woman in a fancy dress was sitting in his back seat with tears streaming down her face. I didn't speak until we reached my driveway, and even then, I could only whisper a thank you as I handed him cash. Liam's car wasn't in the driveway. He was probably still at the Gala, celebrating with Victoria and the colleagues who had found my humiliation so entertaining. The house felt different when I walked through the front door, smaller somehow, as if it belonged to someone else's life. I spent Sunday in bed, staring at the ceiling and replaying every moment of Saturday night. The laughter, Liam's silence, the CEO's smirk as I whispered my stock price threat. By Sunday night, something had crystallized inside me. The woman they had humiliated wasn't pathetic or unimportant. She was dangerous, and they had no idea what they had unleashed. Monday morning, I sat down at my home office staring at my laptop, as if it were a time machine, capable of transporting me back to the person I used to be. The screen was black, reflecting my face, but I could see past that reflection to the woman who had once saved pension funds from fraudulent investments. My fingers moved over the keyboard with a muscle memory I didn't realize I had retained. Password after password came to mind as I accessed databases I had kept but had barely touched in months. Bloomberg Terminal, Edgar, corporate filing databases, industry analysis platforms. The subscriptions I had kept active, just in case, suddenly felt like the best spent money I had ever had. The first thing I opened was Ether Solutions' most recent filing. As I scrolled through pages of corporate legal speak and financial tables, something I hadn't felt in years began to burn in my chest. Professional hunger, the thrill of the chase, the satisfaction of seeing patterns others missed. "Let's see what you've been hiding," I whispered to my screen. Within an hour, I found the first irregularity: executive stock option grants that were suspiciously backdated, close to major announcements that would drive up stock prices. The timing wasn't technically illegal, but it showed a pattern of executives positioning themselves to profit from information before it became public. I pulled up Victoria's employment records through public filings. Her signature was on the documents approving these option grants. She had been at Ether for 18 months, and in that time, the questionable practices had accelerated dramatically. My coffee grew cold as I dug into the quarterly earnings reports. Revenue recognition that pushed the boundaries of accounting standards. Expenses that were curiously shifted between reporting periods. R&D costs that seemed to disappear and reappear in different categories without proper explanation. "Careless," I murmured, highlighting another discrepancy. Overconfident and careless. By Tuesday afternoon, I had enough material to file a regulatory complaint, but a complaint would take months to investigate, and I wanted faster results. I needed a different approach. The anonymous post on the Investors Forum took me 3 hours to craft. I chose the username Financial Avenger and wrote an analysis that would be impossible for serious investors to ignore. Red flags at Ether Solutions, a deep dive analysis of troubling financial patterns. I included charts showing the correlation between executive stock transactions and company announcements. Graphs that illustrated the unusual timing of revenue recognition. Tables that compared Ether's accounting practices to industry standards. Everything was documented with precise citations from public filings and regulatory guidelines. The post went live Wednesday morning at 6 a.m., timed to catch investors before the market opened. By noon, it had been shared on 3 major investing forums and cited in 2 financial blogs. Wednesday night brought the first surprise, an email to a secure account I had set up for the anonymous posts. "Whoever you are, Thank you. I've been suspicious of Ether's numbers for months, but didn't have the expertise to properly document it. Your analysis is spot on. There's more where that came from if you're interested. A concerned insider. The attached documents made my pulse race. Internal emails discussing ways to optimize quarterly reporting. Meeting notes about delaying certain expense recognitions. Most damning of all, a thread where Victoria explicitly discussed timing announcements to maximize stock price impact around executive option grants. We can shift the development costs to next quarter and announce the beta this Friday, an email read. That should give the stock a nice boost right before the option grants vest. Victoria's reply was even more damning. Perfect. The board won't question the accounting treatment if the results look good. Thursday brought another bombshell. Someone had forwarded me a screenshot of Ether's internal Slack channel, posted Saturday night during the gala. Victoria and I. Did you see Alara's face when she found her place card? Priceless. Serendipity. I can't believe you actually did that. Wild. Victoria and Liam said she needed to understand her place. Mission accomplished. She won't bother us with her professional insights anymore. The screenshot was time-stamped 11:47 p.m. on Saturday, less than 2 hours after I had left the gala. Victoria had been bragging about humiliating me while I was crying in a taxi. I saved the screenshot and added it to my growing file. The pattern was becoming clear. Victoria wasn't just manipulative in her personal relationships. She was also reckless and arrogant in her professional conduct. Friday morning, I published a second part, incorporating the new evidence. This one was titled, Culture and Conduct. When does leadership failure extend beyond the numbers? The response was immediate and explosive. Financial journalists began calling Ether Solutions' corporate communications department. Investment analysts began to downgrade their stock recommendations. Regulatory bodies opened preliminary inquiries. I watched it all unfold from my home office, drinking coffee and feeling more alive than I had in months. Every news alert, every point the stock price dropped, every analyst comment questioning Ether's practices felt like a validation of everything Victoria and Liam had dismissed about my capabilities. By Friday afternoon, Ether Solutions' stock price had dropped 12%. The company released a statement about addressing recent concerns raised by market analysts and announced they were conducting a comprehensive internal review of accounting practices. I knew that internal review would find exactly what I had already documented. Victoria's fingerprints were on every questionable decision, and her arrogance had left a paper trail that would be impossible to explain. The anonymous emails from whistleblowers were now pouring in. Current employees, former employees, vendors who had witnessed questionable practices. They all wanted to share what they knew with the person who had finally spoken up about Ether's problems. One message in particular caught my attention. I'm a junior accountant at Ether. Victoria Sterling has been pressuring our department to manipulate quarter-end numbers for months. I've been documenting everything because I was afraid of losing my job if I reported it. Your posts gave me the courage to contact the SEC directly. Thank you for giving us a voice. Saturday night, exactly 1 week after the gala, I poured myself a glass of wine and reviewed the week's accomplishments. Ether Solutions was under investigation by 3 regulatory bodies. Its stock price was in freefall. Victoria's professional reputation was crumbling as journalists dug into the culture she had created. The woman they had called a pathetic, unimportant gold digger had sparked the biggest corporate scandal in the tech industry that year. And I was just getting started. Liam still hadn't come home. According to his LinkedIn status, he was managing crisis communications for Ether Solutions. I wondered if he had any idea that his dismissed wife was the anonymous analyst taking down his beloved company. As I closed my laptop that night, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Professional satisfaction. The financial avenger was back, and she was hungrier than ever. The truth had momentum now, rolling downhill like an avalanche. All I had to do was step back and watch Victoria Sterling's carefully constructed world collapse under the weight of her own arrogance. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of empowerment like this one. The final showdown and my great escape. Sunday morning brought the phone call I had been waiting for. My secure line rang at 7:23 a.m., and the voice on the other end belonged to David Reynolds, a financial journalist for the Financial Times. "I'm trying to reach Financial Avenger 47, he said. "I know this is unconventional, but your analysis of Ether Solutions has garnered significant attention. We'd like to expand on your findings for a front-page story." I had been waiting for this moment since the market closed on Friday. "What kind of expansion?" "We've independently verified most of your documentation. Our research team has uncovered additional evidence that supports your conclusions on questionable accounting practices. We want to publish a comprehensive exposé, but we need to ensure our source material is bulletproof." 20 minutes later, I had anonymously provided David with additional documentation that would make his article unassailable. The credibility of the Financial Times would amplify my findings beyond anything I could achieve through forum posts. The Monday headline read, "Tech Darling Ether under federal investigation for accounting irregularities." The article detailed everything I had uncovered, plus the information his research team had independently gathered. Victoria's name appeared 17 times, each mention more damaging than the last. By 10 a.m., Ether Solutions stock had dropped another 18%. Trading was halted twice as sell orders flooded the market. I watched the chaos unfold from my home office, drinking coffee that tasted like victory. The first news alert about Victoria personally came at 11:47 a.m. Ether Solutions executive Victoria Sterling put on administrative leave pending investigation. I captured the notification and saved it to a folder labeled Justice Served. Liam's key turned in the front door at 2 p.m., 3 hours earlier than usual. His footsteps on our hardwood floors sounded heavy, defeated. I heard him drop his briefcase by the entrance, something he never did. "Ilara." His voice carried a vulnerability I hadn't heard in years. "I'm in the office," I called out, not looking up from my laptop, where I was tracking Ether's continued stock plunge. He appeared in my doorway, looking like he had aged 5 years in 5 days. His hair, usually perfect, was disheveled, his tie loosened, his expensive suit wrinkled. "We need to talk," he said, sitting in the chair across from my desk without an invitation. "About what?" "About Victoria, about the investigation, about everything that's happening at work." He rubbed his face with both hands. "I don't know how much you've heard, but it's bad. Really bad." I minimized my browser window and gave him my full attention. "How bad?" "The SEC is launching a formal investigation. The FBI seized documents from Victoria's office this morning. There are rumors about criminal charges." He looked at me with desperate eyes. "I've been working with Victoria for 2 years, Ilara. If they find evidence of intentional fraud, anyone associated with her decisions could be implicated." "That sounds serious." "It is serious. My career could be over. Everything we've built together could be gone." He leaned forward, trying to reach for my hand across the desk. "I need your analytical expertise. You're the smartest person I know when it comes to financial forensics. Could you help me understand what they might be looking for?" The irony was breathtaking. The man who dismissed my professional insights for months was now begging for the expertise he had called niche and small scale. "Why would you need my help? Doesn't Victoria have everything under control?" Liam's laugh was bitter. "Victoria is completely falling apart. She's blaming everyone but herself, claiming she was just following industry standards. But some of the documentation, Ilara, I think she might have been deliberately manipulating the numbers. That would be securities fraud. I know what it would be. His voice cracked with stress. I'm scared, Ilara. For the first time in my career, I'm genuinely terrified for my professional future. I studied his face, seeing real fear behind the desperation. A part of me felt sympathy for the man I had once loved unconditionally, but a larger part felt a cold satisfaction at watching his world crumble in the same way mine had at that gala. What exactly are you asking me to do? Help me distance myself from Victoria's decisions. Look at the documents I was involved in, and help me understand which ones might look problematic to investigators. He paused, swallowing hard. I know I haven't been the best husband lately. I know I haven't appreciated your professional skills the way I should have. But we're a team, right? Partners for life. The words he had said 9 years ago in that university parking lot felt hollow now, stained by years of dismissal, and culminating in his silence during my public humiliation. When was the last time you considered us partners, Liam? He blinked, clearly unprepared for the question. What do you mean? When was the last time you asked my opinion on something important? When was the last time you valued my professional expertise? When was the last time you stood up for me when someone attacked my credibility? His face paled as understanding dawned. Ilara, if this is about the gala, it's about everything, Liam. The gala was just the final confirmation of what we had become. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a manila folder, which I had been preparing for this very conversation. Inside were copies of apartment listings, consultations with divorce lawyers, and financial statements that showed exactly how much my consulting business could generate if I focused on it full time. What is this? He asked, though his voice suggested he already knew. My exit strategy. I've been rebuilding my professional network while watching your precious mentor destroy her career through her own arrogance. I handed him the top document, a consulting contract with a hedge fund worth more than his annual salary. 3 former clients want to hire me full-time. My reputation for integrity and analytical precision never went away, Liam. I just buried it to support a husband who stopped seeing my value. His hands trembled as he read the terms of the contract. You're leaving? I'm saving myself. There's a difference. But the Victoria investigation, my career, everything is falling apart. Victoria's investigation exists because someone with my skills decided to look at her practices closely. Her career is ending because she was careless and arrogant. Your career is in jeopardy because you chose loyalty to a corrupt mentor over respect for your wife. Liam stared at me for a long moment, and I saw the exact moment he started to connect dots he should have connected years ago. You know something about this investigation, don't you? I closed my laptop and stood up. I know that the truth has a way of rising to the surface when someone with the right expertise decides to look for it. Ilara, what did you do? I reminded everyone that the pathetic, unimportant gold digger at the gala actually has a PhD in financial analysis and a decade of experience exposing corporate fraud. I walked to our bedroom and began pulling clothes from my closet. I was doing what I should have done years ago. I stopped hiding my capabilities to make other people comfortable. Liam followed me, watching me methodically fold clothes into suitcases with the same precision I had once used to analyze fraudulent financial statements. You can't just leave like this. We can get through this. Can we? When did you plan on starting to respect my professional expertise? After Victoria's criminal trial? After your career recovers from being associated with a fraud? After you finally decide I'm worth defending? He sat on our bed, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. I know I messed up. I know I should have said something at the gala. But Victoria said it was just a joke, that you'd understand the humor. Victoria told you about the place card beforehand. It wasn't a question. Liam's silence confirmed what I had suspected since that night. She showed you the card before the event, didn't she? You knew I was going to walk into that humiliation, and you said nothing. She said it would be funny. She said you'd laugh about it later. I stopped packing and looked at him directly. Did you actually believe that? Or did you just not care enough to stop it? He could not meet my eyes, which was answer enough. I zipped my suitcase and headed for the door. On our kitchen counter, I left a note with words I had been composing for weeks. Liam, it wasn't the insult that broke us. It was the silence that followed. The woman you dismissed is the same woman who just took down your mentor's empire. Perhaps next time, you'll remember that underestimating people has consequences. Elara, sharing this story. Stepping out of that house felt like stepping into sunlight after years in the shadows. My phone vibrated with another news alert. Former Ether executive Victoria Sterling charged with federal securities fraud. The financial Avenger was fully awake now, and she was just getting started. The meaningful ending, the apartment I found, was everything our house had never been. Bright, clean, and completely my own. Floor-to-ceiling windows in the living room overlooked the city skyline, and the morning light streamed across hardwood floors that held no memory of arguments or silent dinners. The kitchen was small but efficient, perfect for someone who planned to spend most of her time building a career instead of hosting dinner parties for people who didn't respect her. Moving took exactly one afternoon. 9 years of marriage, and everything I really wanted fit into my car in 6 boxes. I hung my diplomas on the wall of my new home office. My PhD in financial analysis from the London School of Economics. My certified fraud examiner certificate. The awards from industry organizations that had recognized my work before I buried it to support Liam's ambitions. Welcome to your new life, Elara, I said to myself in the bathroom mirror that first night. The woman looking back already looked different. Shoulders straighter, eyes clearer, mouth set in determined lines instead of the apologetic softness I had worn for years. Tuesday morning brought the phone call that would reshape everything. Patricia Montero from Vanguard Capital had been trying to reach me for 3 days. Elara, I've been following your work for years, especially your recent analysis of the tech sector irregularities, she said without preamble. We need someone with your expertise as our new director of research. The compensation package started at $200,000 plus bonuses tied to fund performance. I almost dropped my coffee cup. You want to hire me full-time? We want to build an entire research division around your analytical approach. Your reputation for finding trouble before it hits the headlines is exactly what our investors need in this market. 3 weeks later, I walked into the glass-walled offices of Vanguard Capital in a perfectly fitting navy suit, with a confidence I had forgotten I possessed. My business cards read Elara Chin, Director of Equity Research, and seeing my name in elegant type felt like reclaiming a part of myself I had lost years ago. My first assignment was to evaluate a biotech company as a potential acquisition target. Within hours of digging into their financials, I found patterns that reminded me of my early consulting days. Revenue recognition that seemed designed to impress rather than inform. Research costs that were moved between categories without clear justification. This company is cooking their books, I told Patricia during our afternoon meeting. Their FESE2 trial results don't justify the revenue projections, and they're hiding development failures in subsidiary accounting. How sure are you? Sure enough to stake my reputation on it. I slid my analysis across her desk. Give me 1 more week to document everything, and you'll have a report that will save your fund millions. Patricia smiled. This is exactly why we hired you. Working again in a professional environment where my expertise was valued felt like oxygen after years of suffocation. My colleagues treated me as an equal partner on complex financial decisions. During strategy meetings, people leaned forward when I spoke, instead of waiting politely for me to finish. My insights were shaping investment decisions worth tens of millions of dollars. Ilara's analysis just saved us from a catastrophic pharmaceutical investment, Patricia announced during our monthly partners meeting. Her due diligence uncovered accounting irregularities that would have cost the fund an estimated $40 million. The applause felt genuine, hard-earned. For the first time in years, I was being recognized for the work I actually did, rather than dismissed as someone who dabbled in numbers. The Google alert about Victoria arrived on a Thursday morning while I was reviewing quarterly reports. Former Ether executive Victoria Sterling charged with federal securities fraud. The accompanying photograph showed a woman I barely recognized. Gone were the designer suits and the commanding presence that had once intimidated me. Victoria was standing outside federal court in flats and a cheap jacket, her shoulders hunched in defeat. The woman who had built her career by projecting invincibility looked small and ordinary. The charges were serious: falsification of investor disclosures, manipulation of earnings reports, and conspiracy to commit securities fraud. Each charge carried a potential prison sentence and guaranteed professional destruction. I read the article twice, feeling something I hadn't expected. Not triumph, but a quiet satisfaction. Justice had been served not through revenge, but through the simple exposure of the truth. Victoria's arrogance and careless practices had created the very evidence that took her down. I had simply shined a light on what was already there. The comments section was brutal, but predictable. "Isn't this the executive who humiliated that woman at the company gala?" one reader wrote. "Karma has an interesting sense of timing." Another comment made me pause. "I worked at Ether during the Victoria era. She created a toxic culture where bullying was disguised as high-performance standards. I'm glad someone finally held her accountable." Victoria had built her entire professional identity on manipulation and cruelty, and now that foundation was completely crumbling. The same strategic thinking she had used to undermine my marriage had made her overconfident in her financial misconduct. 6 months after leaving Liam, I realized the transformation was complete. The woman who had once been dismissed as a pathetic, unimportant gold digger was now leading investment decisions for one of the city's most respected funds. My analysis was influencing portfolio strategies worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Industry publications were citing my research, and other financial firms were trying to recruit me monthly. But professional success was only one part of the story. For the first time in years, I was making decisions based completely on my own preferences and priorities. My apartment reflected my taste instead of compromises to someone else's vision. My schedule revolved around work I found challenging instead of supporting someone else's ambitions. On Friday nights, I would sit on my balcony with a glass of wine, watching the city lights twinkle below, and marveling at how peaceful life could be without constant tension and contempt. No more analyzing every conversation for hidden criticisms. No more wondering if my professional insights would be valued or dismissed. No more walking on eggshells around someone else's fragile ego. The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday, requiring only my signature to make official what had been emotionally over months ago. Liam had included a handwritten note that I read once before filing it away. "Ilara, I know I can never undo the damage I caused. You were always the stronger partner in our marriage. I just wasn't smart enough to see it until it was too late. I hope you find the respect and recognition you deserve. Liam." The apology felt hollow after years of dismissal, but I appreciated the acknowledgement. Liam was facing his own consequences: unemployment, professional disgrace by association with Victoria, and the loss of a wife whose expertise could have saved his career if he had bothered to value it. As I signed the divorce papers, I thought of the couple we once were, two ambitious students with dollar store champagne and limitless dreams. That partnership had been real, but it had also been fragile. When success and outside influence tested our foundation, we found it wasn't strong enough to survive. But from the ashes of that failed marriage, something better had emerged. Not revenge or vindication, but resurrection. The woman Victoria had tried to diminish was now thriving in ways neither she nor Liam could have ever imagined. The truth had done all the work. I had simply provided it with the opportunity to shine. If this story of silent justice had you on the edge of your seat, hit like right now. My favorite part was when Alara whispered, "I'd check your stock prices if I were you," to the CEO, knowing exactly what was to come. What was your favorite moment? Leave it in the comments. Don't miss more stories of empowerment like this one. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a post.